click. That I was just trying to make the sound of a door. Figured that's what room sounds.
It means silence for like 5 seconds. God damn it.
That was the natural room sound.
No, but that'll actually be good. So welcome back to TorqueTalks. I may or may not have released the last episode that I did in this new format with Scott Browder because we had some technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll be able to save from the iPhone video enough audio because it was a pretty interesting conversation.
Decent. I was able to hear everything.
But today I am very excited because I have with me Mr. Stephen French. And Stephen French used to actually live in the Torque house back in, was it 2017?
That was August 2017. I moved in. February
2018 is when you moved out. Yeah, it was not long enough. He did not live with us for long enough. That was such a great time when we lived together.
It's fantastic. A lot of this just without the recording.
Yeah. We just never recorded stuff.
Y'all witnessing our natural habitat right now.
Yeah, for real. Where we would just like sit down and, have a cup of coffee, freshly brewed in the afternoon. Right now the sun is setting and we are drinking fresh coffee.
Dude, I'm loving this house because it's so almost the same as the other Torque house.
Dude, it's like almost identical, but every aspect of it is better.
Someone just like fucked with the scaling of every room. They just stretched the rooms around, but they kept them in the same place.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
What's interesting is I'm pretty sure it's actually a smaller square footage than our old place. Okay. But it's just more usable by like that drastic of an amount.
I think it's more fitting. Like I would say the other place is nicer, but this is better. The first thing Kerwood said to me was a very kind of true statement. We pull up to this beautiful ass neighborhood, this beautiful ass house, and the first words out of his mouth are, "Yeah, we don't fit the demographic." Yeah. So now you have like the same quality house and it fits the demographic. It just like things are more in place.
Gotcha, like with the triggers, just because it's a little bit older of a house.
Carpeted bathrooms is always something that I'll never totally understand.
Yeah, that's a weird one for us too. The fact that it's carpeted.
Like pee sprinkles no matter what.
Oh yeah.
It's a guarantee.
Oh yeah.
And carpet holds on no matter what. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago I had one of those morning, you're half asleep, half awake pees, and you sort of like lean a little bit. And like I started and normal toilet sound, and then halfway through I started hearing this completely different noise. I opened my eyes and I had managed to not make the toilet.
It happens to the best of us, man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason that there's a running joke about guys not. Yeah, every single bathroom is carpeted around the toilet. Like I could understand like carpeting it like in some area, like right in front of the bathtub or something, because like I don't know, you want mold, but
everyone needs a little more mold in their life.
Yeah, just a little bit of mold.
It's like girls always say they want to learn how to not learn how, but they want to stand up and pee. It's like, oh, do you want to be really aware of your shins when you're wearing shorts? Like it's not all great. It's like you're walking around knowing you have pee in your shins. You don't. Every guy does.
Right? That's very true. That's something that we usually don't think about.
Yeah, we forget about it way too easy. Every guy forgets about it way. You get out of the bathroom.
You probably have more pee on your shins than you do on your hands.
Oh, good chance. Solid chance. We're riddled with pee.
It's just a pee problem.
And if you're wearing pants, you're even more ignorant. Like that fabric's just holding on and carrying it with you.
Ooh, messy. So you moved out to go, where did you go? You went to Arizona, right?
This whole last couple of years, I was talking with Jared, like my last couple of years have been my favorite couple of years so far.
Yeah, dude, you've been on this crazy adventure. So like to start off with, when you moved out to us, you didn't even get to like move in. You slept one night there, and then we road tripped a couple hours up to Wyoming.
It goes back a little further. Because like I guess doesn't do well to go into like why I started moving.
No, but when we moved, please go into it.
A few months back then. To make it super short, one of those very typical relationship goes south and you decide to like something's got to change, you kind of fall back on doing exactly what you always wanted to do. You just hadn't done it yet. I've always wanted to travel. In particular, I grew up all over the place. My parents married forever, but they never stayed in a house for more than a year. And I just bounced along with them. So like, I can't stay still. I'm a nomad by nature. And I had been staying on Long Island for a while. And then after that relationship split, I was like, shit, like I've been wanting to travel. And everyone says you need money to travel. I'm sure that's bullshit. If you can be broke in New York, you can be broke anywhere else. So I started looking for places to go. My two best options for viability were here with you and Kerwood, or following that guy Tommy I just showed you the song, down to Florida. This seemed like the safer, easier option. So I was like, sure, why not? Gomez was also moving out to Cali at that time. He was going to be working remotely, so it didn't matter when he left. He was essentially done with his job, just ready to move. And then Jesse just wanted to come around for a ride. He was the only one that had like a deadline to go. So he needed to leave like a week later than we actually came out. But I knew the eclipse was coming, and I knew this was my only chance to see it. So I was like, Jesse, like, watch this video. Please appreciate how fucking rare this is. Whatever you can do, please leave early. Like, it spins, they're gonna be fine.
I do remember you talking about like, I don't know if we're gonna make it. Like, we're trying, but it's looking like it might be really close. So that's why. Yeah, that's right. Because you guys were gonna come out earlier originally.
We're gonna be a little later because I think it might have been the summer shows thing that Spins does. I forget what they call it, like an expo of sorts. I think that was going on, so I think they kind of needed Jesse, but they were able to pull it off and not have him there, so he was able to ride out with us. So yeah, we got here, we slept for one night, and then we went up to the eclipse, to the still one of the best moments.
Yeah,
that whole weekend was a moment.
So we went up there, and we got there the night before on this like just random pin that we had dropped that was in the path of totality. We just like sort of Googled the path of totality and did our math and found a longitude, latitude, and found a road off of that we could access without pissing a bunch of farmers off, because it was straight up in the middle of just nowhere, Wyoming.
Yeah, and I bought that guy's app that used our geolocation to tell us where in totality we were.
Oh, that's
how
right.
much in, and they even read out the seconds for when C1, C2, like when each phase started. I bitched out when the diamond ring happened.
You didn't look at it?
I bitched out on both of them because you can see the diamond ring with the naked eye. You can't see it at all with the glasses on. So I was wearing the glasses, and he said to take the glasses off. I was like, fuck, I can still see it. I don't want to look at that without the lenses. So then the diamond ring happened. I took off the lenses, and I was on the Corona. I was like, shit, I missed it. And then the same type of anxiety coming back in. I was like, all right, the sun's about to come out. Don't put them on. I put them on right before the ring. I was not going to make that mistake again. I missed it both times.
I mean, we've all stared into the sun once for like a second or two.
It was my first psychedelic. Everything was in
just like the reason that you need the glasses that bad for because
we're looking for a while
thing is because you keep looking back at it and staring into the sun to see like as it's coming across.
But everything in the world is brand new to me. That was the first time I took any psychedelics.
But even before,
I was not able to think things through. I was just reacting.
Right. But even before we got to the totality, just the stars that night were
the night before,
amazing, because we got there, it was like 3 cars deep, and we started setting up our tents and everything, and in the dark.
I thought the road would be full by the next morning, but it like doubled, but we each there were several car lengths between every car.
It was nice to have our little bit of space in there.
Middle of fucking nowhere, flat in all directions, but that one rock that we climbed later. It was the only thing protruding from the horizon.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys went all the way there. That's really far.
It looked so far.
It took you like an hour and a half to get there.
I didn't feel like that at all.
Yeah, but it took you a long time.
The other car was ready to go. If you guys needed to piece, it was figured out enough.
I wasn't concerned.
You were asleep.
I was chilling in the car.
That was
decompressing from that.
It was funny looking from the top. Y'all were like stacking whatever lenses you could to try to zoom in as much as you could on us.
Oh yeah,
that was hilarious. Beautiful time. That was me, Rudy, Jesse. Was it just us that went out?
Kerwood.
Did he? Yeah, Kerwood hiked.
Oh wait, I think
Kerwood saw the shits.
Yeah. No, Kerwood. I don't think went. Yeah, so I guess it was just you 3 or maybe one other.
Yeah, that was because Gomez was back at the car. He was taking the pictures while we were out there.
Yeah, that's right. I was taking forever to pack all my shit up. You had dogs with you.
What's that?
I'm pretty sure you had dogs with you because I think Rudy had his dogs.
No.
Did he not?
No, I think Atlas was the only pup on that adventure.
Well, yeah. I could have swore that Rudy just always brings his dogs. Usually. So I think
I remember well because I was like not disappointed, but just sad that I didn't get to spend all that extra time with the pups.
More dogs.
They're beautiful. Right. Better. Like that's an easy +1 to any scenario. More dogs, better.
Right. But so then you moved here, so you're here from like August until February.
That was the hardest part of my life so far. Like
really, that particular stretch.
Well, I got here. Best Buy was transferring me, so I was going to get here and start working full time, which meant I got benefits. It was a 5-mile bike ride, shorter than I did when I taught martial arts, but longer than my prior Best Buy job. So phone interview, they were going to keep my pay, keep my hours. It's going to be sweet. I get out here. I have an in-person interview. They were going to keep my pay, keep my hours. That was sweet. And then I got a call like a week later, like, oh, sorry, but we can only have you occupation seasonal. So less pay, no bonus, and fewer hours. So I had to bail on that. I was trying to do some of the valet parking with Kerwood. I was kind of soul crushing. And they're like, the guy's talking point was like, yeah, we'll cater the 2%. And then the next line, which I had to fucking ask about, is it's like, so what happens if anything gets scratched? Like, oh, that's entirely on you. It's like, the 2% buys some expensive fucking cars. And you guys aren't going to help me at all if it gets dinged. Like, I'm doing my best either way, but accidents happen. So I was like, I didn't know if I could feel comfortable with that because I'm not someone who drives very often. So,
that's right. You're from New York.
I'm usually on a motorcycle or my feet. Like I haven't owned a vehicle in a minute.
Yeah, that was crazy to me that you lived with us the entire time without once having a vehicle. And you never had issues. Like you always got where you needed to be.
Bought a bike, returned it when I was done.
That is so
Walmart 90-day policy. It's fucking absurd. I will take advantage of that. No, but I'm iffy on the valet job. I do some of the flag work that kind of sucked, but I was willing to do it. And I got the job at Ross. Right after getting the job at Ross, I was hit with that credit card fraud.
You had that. I forgot about that credit card.
Yeah, that was garbage.
That was like the whole time you were living.
I'm still dealing with it.
You're still dealing with that?
I told them I won't pay. They've like canceled the account, so I guess it's not collecting interest. But I think it's their fault. I was paying a middleman company for student loan consolidation. Turns out they weren't a real thing. So the person that I gave my information to, like I tried to defer my last payment. If I didn't try to defer, I would have never known. I tried to defer the last payment by like a couple days because I was getting paid from Ross a couple days later. Then I needed the money to go out. Usually not an issue. And the woman's like, what do you mean there are no consolidation fees? It's like, well, what do you mean? I just spent $750 on that exact thing. So yeah, Chase gave me the money back only to tell me later that they didn't think it was fraud. And for very absurd reasons that if it was an actual criteria, it was the information I gave them in the day one would have disqualified me.
But they also, you forgot to mention that once they gave you the money, they told you
48 hours they were verified.
Let this money sit there for a couple of days while we verify this. And once that's passed, then you're in the clear to spend it, and it's your money again, and it means that we've cleared it.
They told me that wasn't a policy, so when I asked to hear the voice records, they said no, and I asked if they had the voice records, they said yes. I said, can you tell me that you will listen to them? And they still said no. Like, I was not allowed to hear my voice record for that.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, if that's the case,
Comcast, I've pulled that shit before. Like, they tried to get me on something where they were trying to get me to pay like $400 extra. And I was like, listen, I had a specific conversation with someone. They fucked something up, and that's on them, not on me. And if we go back to that conversation, I'll give you the date and the time of the conversation, and, go listen to the transcripts. They went and looked at the transcripts, and I could hear the dude's change of voice when he realized that I was actually on top of what I was talking about. And, still, after climbing multiple managers, wasn't able to get it done.
Same situation.
Wait. I didn't pay my account for 2 months, and then I called them back and I said, hey, how about we negotiate now? You guys want some of my money, and I want to pay you my money, but we got to get the bill right because I'm not paying all this extra shit. I was like, I will pay up to this amount. And if you can, and I was like, here is exactly why. And I spelled it out for the guy, and he went back and he looked at my records, and he was like, okay, I see what you're talking about. That makes sense. He's like, I can give you like this amount off. And it was like $200 off. And I was like, you know what? That puts me like maybe $50 more than I wanted to spend, but it gets this account current and like gets everything set up for the new place. So, okay, sure. We'll do that. But I mean, with Comcast and like a lot of these companies that have subscriptions and they like change the pricing all the time, you just got to call them back once a year and talk to the right person and get into a new, promotional deal. And
there's always one that you can land in.
But when it comes to the banks, man,
that was frustrating.
That's so annoying.
No, that money,
because it's like, that's my money.
Yeah.
That you're fucking up, and like, I'm just trying to fix the problem.
Yeah, with Best Buy falling apart, that money was my first month rent pretty much. I didn't have a plan moving into this. So I got that money back and it was great. And then I woke up to like a negative 600 because I just spent all that money on food and rent. So I was working at Ross looking for more jobs at the same time. And out of all of Colorado, 2 Rosses closed down. That was one of them. So I was like, fuck, this last thing just got ripped out from under me. But the rest, it continued to be hard because I kept asking the universe for more challenges. I was like, dude, like that one was tough as fuck. And I got through it pretty well. Like, what's next? I didn't expect it to be like right away next.
Yo, you gotta be hella careful when you start talking to the universe.
Nah, dude, bring it.
If you throw shit at it, it listens and it will. It's like, you ever seen? What's that movie called with Brendan Fraser where the devil gives him wishes? Bedazzled. It's called Bedazzled. You familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it. I don't have any memory of it though. That was too long ago.
Okay, so there's like basically she gives him wishes, and every wish that he makes, it's like, have you ever seen the Facebook post where it's like ruin this request? No. And it's like people will post like what they want, and then you like grant the wish and you like ruin it.
Okay.
That's like what the universe likes to do. It's like, oh,
the fine line.
You said you wanted to be a professional basketball player. So I made you, like you're a dude. I made you a woman now, and you get to like go on with this. Or like
the devil in Rick and Morty.
Yeah, like I think in the movie she made him like this awesome basketball player, but like gave him like the tiniest penis or something like that. And like every single time he would make a wish, she would just like, okay, I'll give that to you, but like I'm gonna give it to you my way.
Yeah, you gotta have some non-ambiguous wishes.
And, like, let's see how you fare with this challenge.
Yeah,
and like
with all the challenges I'm getting thrown at,
shit.
No matter how hard it is, like I think Peterson put it best. Like we're so damn tough that we can take it. Like each and every one of them, just once you get out of it, it didn't matter how hard it was. Like if a video game was harder and then you beat it, you feel better about it.
Oh, definitely.
Like I don't want an easy game.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, it's because you need that struggle to have that release, Yeah. Like you it's like if you just drive to the top of a mountain, you'll look out, but you're not going to appreciate that shit the same way. You got to Sisyphus your way up there. Yeah, exactly. Like you got to climb that bitch. And then once you've actually climbed the mountain, you appreciate the fuck out of that view. Cause you're like, yo, not only did I like work my ass off for this, like I kind of feel like I earned it.
Yeah. And you're surrounded by the people who also earned it.
Right. And then when you look out, there's this different appreciation that you get from the landscape after having earned it, and I think that's the same thing that's happening 100%. With life is, it's like,
that's why I like make my boulder heavier. I think I can take it.
Yeah. So you moved out from Colorado. Where'd you go next?
So from there, I flew out to Arizona. John Enrico, you might not know him. He moved out a few years ago. And then Sean, who you should know, Jared's cousin, he moved out right before I went out there. So I move out and we got try to hire spots.
Well, I'm just going to put it over here because you lean to the side.
Yeah.
And so that way, where's the thing? That way you can talk across it and still be comfortable.
That should work well. So I got out there a little bit after Sean, and John's like, yo, just stay. Don't worry about rent. Just look for work. I was there for 4 months, found nothing. He told me to stay longer, but I felt like a burden. So I had to piece. So I went to Long Island and got a job in a metal shop. Did that for the whole summer. They were keen on me leaving when pretty much the season got cold. From there, I bounced up to see my brother in upstate New York for a month. And then Constantine was going to go out and visit Sean in Arizona. And I was thinking about moving back out there. So I stayed on Long Island for another month of no work, just kind of eating away at all the funds I had so I could fly out with Con, just make the trip a little more fun. And then I was in Arizona again for, I think, like close to 7 months. That was also very hard, pretty similar to what happened in Colorado happened there. I was unemployed for the last 2 months there.
Just like a bunch of bullshit.
A bunch of challenges, dude. They were great.
Bullshit.
And I fucking answered and responded to each one of the challenges, and it worked out. So
What was the most important thing you've learned traveling and just like bouncing from place to place?
That my mom was right. The main lesson that she gave me as a kid is that everything works out. And I'm she ain't wrong yet. Every place is a new challenge. That's why I keep going to different places. But so Arizona, I bounced from there to Georgia. Then I went back to Long Island. I was going to stay there for this whole summer at a different metal shop. Another whole challenge came with that one. But then we met up at Neo and started talking, and I flipped an internal coin and quit my job again.
Reached into the pocket for Urim and Thummim.
Dude, came up black. I called my mom as like when making that decision. I was like, Mom, do I do this? Do I financially reset myself again? She goes, well, isn't that where you're your best? I was like, what? She's like, well, that seems to be like you are good at taking that challenge and not looking back and making it work for you. I'm like, that's
you operate best when you're back against the wall and all of your bridges burned behind you.
That's what I learned from procrastinating. I do it well.
Yeah, honestly, that's something that I've talked about in the past with people. Is it seems like every couple of months I just like let aspects of my life fall into decay so that I have a challenge to put it back together. Because something I have written down in my notebook is the problem with success is that you keep on going the same way.
Yeah,
and
I think that came up in your Browder talk.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really something fundamental is like success is a state of failure and
perpetual failure.
Yes. It's a state of tension between your ability to look on the last failure and then look on the next challenge with a willingness to fail that too. And like eventually you'll learn enough from those failures that you'll start succeeding in those challenges. But the problem is if you stay in this narrow place where all of the challenges can be easily solved with your skill level, you aren't learning anything from that. Like you need that struggle and that tension to build. And like, it's not something that I like enjoy, like, cognitively. It's not like a conscious thing where I'm like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm not going to pay all my bills.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like subtle things where it's like you get distracted with things and then you forget to make a deposit on the right day. And so then, you end up paying late fees on, a car payment. And then, after that you pay the car payment, but then you forgot that you don't have enough money for the next bill that's coming out. So then you get the overdraft fee with that. And so then you have to put it on your credit card because you don't have enough money. So then it's building interest. Yeah. And it's just like this like cascade of downward, little mistakes that happen. And like once you get to the bottom of that, everybody has a point.
You hit the trampoline and you got to come back up.
Everybody has a point. Some people will let their lives really fall out of order all the way down to like complete rock bottom, like homeless, drugs, like not showing up for jobs, things like that. I'm lucky that my threshold for like, damn, I'm fucking up is like pretty high up there. It's like, oh man, I'm like 10 days late on one of my bills. Like I'm really fucking, I need to get back on top of it, get my money back in order.
It's the eager
my spending.
It's the eagerness to make another mistake, but the resistance to repeat a mistake. So you always want to be making a new one. You don't want to be making an old one.
Right, because that's how you can learn.
That's how you raise that bar.
And then like because the goal is to just like be able to tackle any challenge no matter how difficult it is. Right? And
they're all hard.
Yeah.
They're like ignore that variable.
Yeah, and the thing that I think most people and like up until pretty recently, I had always wanted to get to this point where like I could accomplish everything without that like fucking up. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'll just learn everything before I go into it because other people have already fucked it up, so I can just learn from their mistakes. But it doesn't work the same way. Like it helps a bunch and you get a bunch of shortcuts, but like you still have to touch the stove to realize that it's hot when you're a child. Like your mom can tell you a bunch, but it's the difference from, slapping your hand on there or versus after your mom told you it was hot a bunch of times, you sort of like just barely tap a finger on it. And so instead of, scalding your palm, you have like this tiny little bubble on the
You need to be on that
fingertip.
spectrum of burnt.
Yeah, but you still have to get burnt to realize that lesson. And you know what? You might touch hot shit again because you barely burnt yourself. But the dude who just like palmed it, that kid is going to grow up and, either, have some crazy issues and like zero pain tolerance or they're not going to touch hot shit anymore.
Lesson fucking learned.
Yeah. But I mean, it does take that, the mistakes taking place even after you know how to not make the mistakes. Yeah. Like I do it in work all the time. We do it with our tricks.
Yeah.
Like when we'll tell people what to do with their tricks as we're like coaching them and like looking from the sideline and just being an extra set of eyes. And then we'll go out and try and do the same trick and fuck up exactly what like that person was fucking up that we were just giving good advice on.
Yeah.
And like if we would just take our own goddamn advice,
it'd be so much easier.
Yeah, we would get somewhere.
Exactly. Now there's a bit off topic back onto the I don't know what topics there were, but a tangent that I've been meaning to talk with you about that I figured this would be right.
We're just having a conversation.
But one that I wanted to bounce off of deliberately. From an analogy that I heard you say not long ago, although I think we've talked about it before, versus my analogy for the same thing. But this has to do with I believe I'm losing belief in free will. I don't know if I think it's there, and I'm shifting more and more towards not.
Oh, this is the perfect segue. I just read a couple books on this, and I have some really interesting thoughts.
Good.
So thank you, universe.
Yeah, I want to go with my analogy, your analogy, and then what I think the difference is, and then I want to see what.
Make sure you're getting that mic in front of you. You can move the mic stand around as much as you want. You just like keep drifting over to.
I'm a drifter boy. That's
fine. Just bring the mic with you.
Dude, keep reminding me. I don't mind that because I will fuck this up a lot. So I see life as a game, as we've talked about ad nauseum in several of our settings. You see life, it seems, as a play. Now, what I think with this
similar,
very.
I see it as both.
Now, I'm in the same boat. I'm trying to polarize us as much as I can, even though we're much more the same, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when I think of a play, I am strictly an observer. Now, I think of these into three different entities. There is the play itself, there is the user experience, and there is the protagonist or the character equivalent for the game. You are strictly observing them on a single path that their life is going to take in this play, in this story. In a game, you believe that your input is changing things, which to a degree it is, a very small degree, and the character is living the game. The character is not on a strictly fixed path. It is taking influence from the user. Free will is... in the extreme of life being exactly a video game, free will is that your input will take you anywhere. Although the developer has a path already, so there is an end to that game. So it doesn't go just anywhere, but I guess we can try to ignore that.
Right. The environment has certain limitations to where your, choices could take you based on.
But if it is an infinitely programmed game, then yes, maybe it could go anywhere. Free will all the way. Mm-hmm. Zero free will is a play. It plays out one way every time. It's the same play. So if we're observing a character in a play, or if we're manipulating a character in a game. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I'm losing belief in free will is that none of my decisions can ever be made again. If I could go back in time knowing that I'm on the same timeline and then make a different choice, that would, I guess, prove. But that's such a ridiculous scenario. Like that, the only proof I can fathom is one that we can't even pretend to practice. So we're left with a belief, whether it is or it isn't. I don't think we can have the right answer. But I'm starting to feel like I imagine if anybody had the data on every variable, every synapse in my brain, every thing that I have learned from in the past, the state of every molecule in my body. I feel like if you knew all of that data, you could predict the next frame because you would know exactly what's going to happen. I don't think it's reasonable to think we could get all of that.
Yes.
But because I believe that that's theoretically possible, that's to say I don't have free will.
Right. So basically what you're saying is, anything that you do is can be explained by prior contingencies within the environment and your feedback to them.
Every variable.
So you eating that grape right now is because you bought those grapes earlier, which happened because we went to the store, which happened because we ran out of coffee.
In hindsight, it was predictable.
And all of that goes back and, there were all of these prior contingencies that led us to this point. And, that's definitely a huge part of the case. And so probably 3 years ago, 2.5 maybe, I think you were probably living with us at this point, or it was maybe right before you moved in. But we were having a conversation one night about free will. And Santana he laid it out to me and laid out some very compelling experiments that had been done and the results associated with them. And basically was like, yeah, so, free will is a myth based on this. And I was like, I can't argue with you based on this logic because it's internally consistent and like
they fall in an axiom. They all do.
You're correct, but I have a fundamental disagreement with that idea that there is no free will. Now, what I've come to in the last couple of years, diving into this and like researching more, is that it's not that there's no free will. It's that the amount of free will that we actually have is so minute, but it's also that much more important. And so like the way that I like to think of it is, when you have a force being applied across a surface area, that let's say it's 100 grams to, 100 square inches is the surface area. And so that is a 1-to-1 force producing 100 as the net force on that. Now, what happens is when you reduce the surface area of the object, this is how sport clutches work. So they'll actually cut out chunks of the area, reducing it by, for simplicity's sake, we'll say 50% in this case.
Okay.
So when you reduce it by 50%, you actually have increased by double the amount of force that 100 grams
the significance
of force,
of it.
Yeah. So that 100, it's still the same 100 grams of force, but the weight that is being like held up by the 50 square inches is now 200 pounds per square inch instead of 100. And so what we've done with free will is, in my estimation, and I'll get into where it lies here in just a minute, or my opinion of where it lies, because like you said, there's so much that we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
We can only speculate on. But sometimes we use language that's a little imprecise and we say we know things and we don't.
Hyperbole.
Just add that caveat in there. But so, with free will, I think of it like, instead of us having 100% free will, which is what I used to believe, and it had this amazing importance, we've now taken that and reduced it down to like 0.1%. Is the amount that I think that we actually have to control ourselves. And so in short, and we can like expand wherever you want to, but I'll just try and get to my point.
Yeah.
In short, where I think free will lies and why I think it exists there is at the point when you are sort of filing away a memory, an experience that you had. So imagine, like a packet, manila envelope that has, pictures and videos and, the script of everything that happened with all of the things that you remember about it. That, is a memory. I know that's not how it actually works, but in this metaphor, imagine that, when you get that packet, it's just all of the raw data, and you have to go through and make notations on it as to where it's going to be filed within your memory bank. And, the way memory actually works is it's built up based off of, categories that are associated with each other. When certain neurons fire together, they'll carry certain things. And so like when you have a category of like impressionist painters, at like Degas and Monet and Da Vinci and not Da Vinci, fucking, why can't I think of him? Van Gogh, like people like those, your brain has this, neuron that is the category of impressionist painters.
There's an actual place for it.
Yes. And but that where that is, it could be anywhere. It's not in the same place in everyone's brain, but like where that neuron is, it is also associated with other ones. And so as you have memories that are being created, you're creating different pathways that associate with different things. And that's sort of how we build up this map of like what's good and what's bad based on our experiences of it. And so, back to that manila envelope, the ability to specify certain areas that you want to associate with a memory, so that way you can sort of train it. And what I mean by train it is like in cognitive behavioral therapy, we have this ability to, through the use of exposure coupled with talk therapy, we can get people to change their wired responses to things. Right. So like you get like a tarantula or, a harmless
scaled down
spider,
torture.
And, you get to the point where not really scaled down torture because it's something
it's the touch burn versus the hand burn. You're introducing their threat to them.
Yes.
In the form of a poke.
But you're reframing it. Right. And so as you reframe it, through neuroplasticity and, like there's that famous saying, neurons that fire together wire together. And so what we have the ability to do is literally change our brains based on what we want if we have a specific intention. The issue is most people go through, life not actually filtering and experiencing things and then like adding their sort of notations to it as to, where that experience needs to go, whether it's in the good side or the bad side. And, that inability to articulate that builds up this terrible repertoire. And so then when they go out into the world, that's when people like start getting agoraphobia and like all of these crazy anxiety disorders. It's because they have this crazy misframing of the world because they're not accurately engaging with it. They're just telling themselves this ridiculous story. And it's sometimes because they previously had been told ridiculous stories. And so the fact that cognitive behavioral therapy works as a way for someone to change their behavior when they would have typically continued down a contingency path, to me, points towards the fact that there must be some type of free will if we have the ability to manipulate within ourselves things and how we respond to them. Because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up in that sort of filing away for the next time that the contingency and the response is outside of your immediate free will. But if you've sort of built up this character, as that character goes through and encounters things, it has certain stats that are associated with it. And so if you can figure out what stats you need to build up, you can combat your anxiety. And like anxiety is fucking crazy. Like I've been reading some books and watching some lectures on like how intense the glucocorticoids actually affect our system. And like they're super beneficial. Actually, one of my favorite medicines that like I take when I have poison ivy, is prednisone. And it's a glucocorticoid, which is a stress hormone response.
Weird.
And so, but it's also why they tell you not to take those all the time. And people who do take them all the time, they have certain deteriorations and health complications from taking too much of these, steroids. Because that's what our body naturally, a glucocorticoid is a type of steroid that is, produced within your I have it in my notes somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's produced in response to ACTH, which is what is released when your pituitary gland realizes that it is in a state of threat or anxiety. and that's influenced from areas further up. And so the cortex and the prefrontal cortex, which is where, you know, the mind space is and like where conversation and thoughts happen, is up in the cortex. Those have the ability to influence your lower layers and adjust the response of your central nervous system in like to the environment. So like if you typically walk into a room and you start getting, you know, cold sweats because you're anxious that someone might come up and talk to you, you have the ability to train your body over time through the right, you know, like experiences and conversations surrounding those experiences. So that way, one day you'll be able to walk into a room and your natural response, because that's what's always happening, because like you said, you can always explain it back by some level of contingency, that has been influenced and changed in a direction that you wanted it to.
But like it seems to have changed, and it could have changed. I guess I'm seeing your metaphor a bit as like guardrails in bowling, where like you can like only have influence over what's inside the rails. And I feel like humans, as we've learned more about the body, about the mind, and just all the sciences, we've kind of learned that there's in some ways less in our control. Like genetics being a big one that kind of gives us a lot of our illnesses or makes us prone or strong to certain illnesses. There's so much that we have no power over, like the nature side of things more so. The nurture we feel like we have control over. But I don't know if it ends on a feel like, or like, because in hindsight, all of those, they do have paths that they ended up taking that could have still been predicted every step along the way, no matter how obscure it seems. Like in programming, there's no such thing as a true random. We don't know how to generate an actual random number. So we use a seed from something that is so unreasonably incalculable.
Which is why people always yell at RNG.
Yeah, you're praying to RNGesus. So like we do enough that it's random enough, but we recognize that it's not a proper random. And I kind of see free will maybe as that. Like it feels like it's real enough. But I live as if it's real, because I tell myself that the decisions I make are the ones that I want to make. I feel bad if I don't. So it's kind of maybe like Peterson saying that he lives as if God is real. It's like, do you believe in God? It's like, I live as if God is real. Which he answers better later on. But,
right.
But it maybe it's that kind of answer that I'm currently sitting on, and I need to
Gotcha. So it sounds answer. Like, so I read recently B.F. Skinner's Beyond Freedom and Dignity, which is like the seminal work on behaviorism. And, you know, he lays out that one of the issues with people taking this up as a way to, people taking this up as a way to organize a society. The issue is that most people are tied with their dignity and their feeling of accomplishment when they do something. Mm-hmm. And so when you tell someone you were going to do that no matter what, that wasn't real, like that was just behavior based on responses that you were given, and you're aversive to bad things. So like you did that because you didn't want that person to like talk shit to you. You didn't do the dishes because you like doing the dishes. You just are tired of getting bitched at for it, you know? And so the issue lies there, is like that responsibility that people have to do something is tied with the accomplishment feeling afterwards, you know? And the other side of things is also when you remove that ability for free will to come into play, it also changes the way that we can punish people, right? And so our entire criminal justice system is completely wrong if the behaviorists are right.
I mean, if free will doesn't exist and those people are getting punished by the people who are punishing, they're also punishing not by free will.
Yes, but the way in which they are punishing, based on the science of behavior that we actually understand, could be reworked to actually engage and, you know, instead of putting people to death, we could look into why they did the things they did.
Oh yeah, in free or
like,
non-free will, you have both of those options.
And so
it plays out only the way that it plays out. So how everything has played out, if we were to find out that yes, free will does exist or no, free will does not exist, doesn't actually matter at all, because everything still played out the way that it played out. So it doesn't change. And that's a big part where kind of emotion gets brought into it. And I see why that topic can scare people, because if you lose the ability to believe that your achievements were yours, like that would suck. But I don't, that's just a variable that I ignore, because that if I found out that none of my achievements were mine, like life was still just as fun. Like all those memories are just as real. So like, it's not going to change how tomorrow is, now that I know a little bit more about how yesterday was.
It's definitely true.
So I don't give enough credit to that perspective, because I don't consider it enough. I recognize that you can easily consider emotion too much. I think I don't consider it enough at times as being one of them. So that's why I want to find a way to rework my answer to figure out, because I'm slowly losing faith in free will. I think I'm still on the believer side, but I feel like there's something to this thought process that I would like to figure out. It seems like a nice little mental challenge for me. A game, a side quest, if you will.
So I may be speaking outside of my understanding level in proposing this, because I while I've followed much of Ian McGilchrist's work, I still am like just now getting into his actual book. And I really want to get through that to really firm up my understanding. But based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're shifting into more and more of the left hemispheric mode of engagement with the world, which is trying to create an internally consistent model. And the aspect of, God or something outside ourselves, or, the universe, or whatever people want to call that, larger than us influence that is directing us. The right hemisphere is what keeps that in check and keeps contextualizing things based on that. And based on my research and my understanding of things through, the philosophy and, like this is actually what I want to write my book on, is it seems to me that when you can enter into a state that allows your mind to be fully present, right? So like a lot of the Buddhist and, just spiritual teachers talk about like this eternal presence. And I think what they're trying to talk about through my neuroscience like research that I've done and the reading on the flow state is they're trying to get people to enter into this flow state where their prefrontal cortex, which is the noisemaker and the chatterbox in your head, it starts to go dim, and you have access to the information within yourself. But that's also where, like, the reason that he discovered this flow state, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, was because he started researching creativity. He was really interested in the people who are at the top of their fields and like who are the most creative and like the people writing PhD papers and like really pushing whatever domain they were in to the next level. And what he found is everyone described a very similar thing where they were describing this flow state, and it wasn't something that they cognitively thought about like, oh, I need to get into this flow state. It was just like he would ask them questions about like, hey, so like when you typically work, what's that like? What do you feel like? And what are the sensations that you have? And what time of day is it? And like what he found was it didn't matter what time of day or, all of these different things that people might think. It was really that the people had a certain level of passion, a desire to, work on the project that they were working on for reasons that weren't just to get that answer. They would actually enjoy doing the work of trying to get to the bottom of the question that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And that aspect of the experience he labeled autotelic, which comes from the Greek auto and telos, which auto is like within itself,
okay,
and telos is goal. And so it's the goal within itself. And that's
it's a journey over the destination.
Yes, exactly. And so that's, what we're trying to get to in our work. And that's actually something that tricking brings us to, is into that state of mind, because we have this level of understanding with the moves that we're working with and the various, combos and the ways that they can fit together. And we can start to piece them together. And the further and further we increase our understanding, the more exciting the challenge becomes and the more we can get into that flow. But like what we're doing is we're pushing like forward into like new creativity, right? And it's this point at which like we like most of the great, like I would say almost every invention or artistic masterpiece or just contribution to our culture and society has come from someone being in that state where everything is timeless for them when they're working on that thing. And to me, that is where we have like things come out in a different way than they typically do in our normal experience, right? Like you'll sit down and you'll try and write something and you'll struggle with it and you'll struggle with it and you'll struggle with it. But eventually when you hit that state, something, and people always talk about it as being, the artist, the muse coming through them, or, like just that I was channeling this
zoned focus,
just this zone. And, I think what that is, and I mean, whether it is an actual like connection to an ethereal being or not, it definitely seems to me that it's the right hemisphere's way of being engaging more so with us. And that's something that we used to have more of back, hundreds, thousands of years ago, but it's shifted away, and it's been shifting, since the origin of consciousness. And like that's what this book is about, is it's called The Origin of Consciousness in the
Ambitious
breakdown
title.
in the breakdown in the bicameral mind. And it helped influence a lot of the ideas that like I really give weight to this theory, because of the how it's built up through this book. But
do you think that animals have a flow state?
I think animals exist in their animal state without the consciousness that we have. And so
that's a weird one for me to think about.
So the consciousness that we have involves an introspective mind space and the ability to see a future and a past.
I don't know that we don't see that in animals.
I believe that there may be some exceptions, but I believe as a general rule, most animals, they don't really have a forward and backward thought process. That's why dogs get so anxious, because they lose track of that time after you've left. Because literally 5 minutes to them, they have no idea, because they are living what like a true person living on a Buddhist path is, like someone that is fully dying to each moment has the ability to fully live in each moment. And, that was a realization that Jiddu Krishnamurti helped me realize in a conversation that he had, that I was watching on YouTube, where they talk about all of these different things, and they really, get down into just the fundamentals of being in the world. And that was one of the things that he talked about, is, dying to each moment. And what it means is don't hold on to the past and don't be looking towards the future, because you miss the present and you miss the experience and the opportunity and the ability to create something. and to bring forth like the manifestation of change in the world, right? And like to me, like that's where it happens. Like that's where the magic happens. That's not necessarily where, you know, all of our free will comes from, because there is no ego in that moment. You know, there is just this experience of being fully engaged in the world. Like, and you know, tricking is so helpful. Like
It taught me how to find it, how to recognize that state.
Yeah. And like, that's what it did for me. It's a tool. And like, now that I have that, I worked my ass off today. It went by like that. It always goes by like that. And it's because there's this degree of enjoyment that I get out of what I do, enough to put me into that state. There's a difficulty so what I do for a living is I paint cars. That's how I make my money. And, you know, I have like a mobile auto body shop. And so every job is different, and every, you know, car has a different shape to it and a different color, and the temperature is different on that day, and it's going to rain or it's not going to rain, or it's windy or it's not windy. And so there's always some changing variable, but I have enough experience, especially at this point, because I've been doing it for 5 years now.
Yeah.
That when something goes wrong or when something happens that's strange, I have this ability to, without like getting concerned or worried about it, like I just move on to the next thing. And what's amazing is I find myself losing entire days, and like everything gets done, you know, and like, but I didn't spend the day anxious and worried about things. I spent it just in this amazing state. And then when I come home, I have this ability to like go into that like introspective mind space, you know, but without an anxiety, because, you know, I have just this feeling of fulfillment from the activity that I was engaged in all day. So then when I get home, I can like think about things without being like super worried about everything, you know? And it's like, the reason that it does that is because chemically flow does all, like it releases all of these different neurochemicals that help to balance out and like flush your system and sort of recalibrate it. And, you know, when you get a flush of neurochemicals, and it's literally like the receptors that are engaged with by the top used illegal drugs, like weed, cocaine, painkillers like opiates, MDMA or ecstasy, and then I always forget the last one. Endorphins, serotonin, norepinephrine, which is like speed. And so like all of those neurochemicals, norepinephrine, dopamine, anandamide, serotonin, and
all the real shapes.
There's
like
one
these
that
are
I'm missing, but we'll come back to it eventually, I'm sure. All of those get put into your brain. And like one of the things that I've been learning about through a book I've been reading from Robert Sapolsky, who Dr. Robert Sapolsky, fucking phenomenal, and like really helped, like made me lean towards the like, you know what, maybe it's not free will all the way. Like maybe there's a lot that's out of our fucking control. And like, where the fuck does any control exist, if there is some? And like, I don't even think that I'm being contradictory with, you know, what I've learned from him. I still need to talk to Tuna about it, because I really think that he's going to.
He and I have talked a little bit about it.
He's going to be able
always
to
been fun.
really poke some holes and put me on my toes and make me search. And, you know, I always love conversations with him, because I gotta
hit him up for a game of chess before I leave.
Yeah, he makes me make sure that I know what I'm talking about, because he'll call you bullshit. But he lays out, I forget where I was going with my point about Sapolsky, but he basically lays out in his book how it was how the stress hormones affect us, and how the imbalances in our neuroreceptors can be thrown off by long-term stress and things like that. But getting them back in order is what can help correct the stress response from happening.
It's interesting that a lot of psychedelics have been used to help with that process.
Yes, but also there's been some recent studies, which is really fucking cool, where regimented weight training and like athletic training classes being done in psych wards have shown better results than psychotherapy drugs.
Shit.
And these
they
are
were already
published,
making impeccable
and these
results.
are published like out there on, you know, NCBI and like actual reputable places.
Better body, better mind.
Yeah. And you know, I think what they're doing is they like in that they were setting up a system where there was enough teaching that the people got a knowledge and an understanding where they could have access to that domain and start making progress within it and starting to enter that flow. And once you enter that flow, you bring yourself back into alignment, and you just, there's so much that comes from being in alignment with both hemispheres engaging with the world, because you don't leave things out.
Did these people microdosing while they do it?
They're not, but they should be. But I mean, like, just the fact that without drugs, people can adjust their neurochemicals back to a point that will help them, you know. And like, honestly, I think psych drugs should be used the same way that we should restructure our welfare system, which is like, hey, you're in a bad way. Your shit's all fucked up.
Let's defrag your hard drive and make some fucking moves.
You need some help. You need some more resources. You know, let's give you some resources so that way your body or, you know, your financial situation can start to alleviate itself. And then you can start doing the work that you couldn't do before because you were too depressed to get out of bed before. But when you took these drugs, you weren't, and you could get up, and now you can go and work out. And that's what your body really needs you to do. And you needed to read and engage with things that make you happy in a way that you can't explain to other people. Because everyone has something that makes them so happy that they get lost for words and they start speaking nonsense. And if anyone is still listening to this podcast, if you find something that you just can't explain to someone around you why you like it so much, but it just brings you joy like no other, don't let anyone stop you from doing that thing. No matter if it's your mom or your family or like a teacher, like, and I mean, make sure it's something that's good for you, obviously. Yeah. Like, I'm not talking about like hedonic pleasures, like just like
a proper
smoking
passion
weed
project.
Or, you know, doing drugs, but like something intellectual or physical that engages you on a level that, you know, makes you work at it, but you just love it so much and you just want to do it all the time. Because that's when you get turned on as a person. And like, there's a great quote that's like, whatever makes you like come alive, do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And like, I believe that to my core. Yeah. And that's like one of the things that, you know, I'm really trying to do with Torque, and like what all of these guys that are helping with Torque and, you know, putting all of this effort into is we're trying to spread what we found with tricking out to as many people as possible, because it for us is that thing that just makes us come alive in a way that we just can't articulate in typical language. And, you know, based on my research, it seems to me that is the right hemisphere trying to communicate what it knows, what you feel in your core when you have that sensation.
It's rewarding you for a good thing.
But because the right hemisphere doesn't have the same access to speech, it's not that it doesn't have access to language at all. It's that it doesn't have access to speech. So there's a breakdown when you're trying to get that conversation point. Yeah, that articulation. And that's why, you know, that's why, in my understanding of it, when people start talking nonsense, but like they know what they're talking about, if you knew enough about what they were talking about, you would understand them.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've personally experienced. Scott Browder.
That's who came to mind.
Scott fucking Browder. I've known that man, and hopefully this podcast with me and him gets released because it was fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
We've known each other for a long ass fucking time. And I always had this sort of view of Scott where it was like, yo, this boy is off his rocker. Like, I love him. He is a mess, but he is our mess.
Like when we watched the Charlie Sheen interview.
Yes.
We thought that was some nonsense, but that was real. There's some truth there.
Yeah. And so, like, Scott would just always say random ass things and just be like talking. And like, there would be so much of his sentences that came off as nonsense to me, and it's because I didn't understand his language and like the vibe that he was trying to communicate.
The intention behind the words.
Yeah, because he says so much more with way less if you're willing to get in touch with him. And he was actually telling me that, you know, like the wooks and like the people at festivals that are just like they'll just be like bullshitting back to each other and it sounds like absolute nonsense. It's because they are speaking a language because of the drugs that they're on that they can understand.
They're vibing. Yeah,
they're vibing.
They're riding that same wavelength.
It's like, that sounds like weird and like bullshit new age to say like, oh, they're vibing, but like, no,
they're not.
They're literally, they're brain coupling.
They're sharing a different type of information.
Jargon. Like there's been studies where like people in conversation and like they enter into this state where their brain waves link up and fire at the same rates. And, you know, same thing with like people's heart rates. Have you heard any of those studies where like someone who you care about, if they like show a beeping on a screen of their heart rate,
you start to sync up.
Heart rate will sync up with theirs.
Dude, mosquitoes do that.
Yeah, and so it's like there's this connection and this ability for us to be in touch with some part of this humanity that transcends that, you know, worry about whether or not there even fucking is free will. That to me is way more fundamental and important than like getting caught up too much with the free will thing. I mainly went down that road because I was proposed something that I disagreed with, and I couldn't articulate why I disagreed with it. And I felt like I either needed to learn enough to disagree with it in an articulatable way, or to just accept defeat on that. And like, I'm still willing to accept defeat on that down the line, or rework my argumentation and to, find the answer.
I think the best thing about free will in either direction is that we get to experience the hunt for what it is. Like it's ambiguous. It's in the air right now, if it's real or not. So we have the opportunity. We're blessed with the curse of having to find yourself.
Yes. Oh my God. Fucking
Scott. I loved when he said that.
Him for that.
But that's the chase for free will.
He said that to me at like 5 a.m. the other night after we've been talking all night, and I just been talking about this same topic and like, similar branches off with various people. And it just fucking blew me away because like, that's so true. Some people just aren't blessed with the curse of having to find themselves.
They just haven't realized. I think everyone is, but they haven't realized that's the objective. Because everyone can find themselves.
Everyone can, yes. But no. Having to. Some people have themselves.
Yeah, and some people will do it even though they didn't have to, but others are forced into it.
Right, and so like that's the thing is like, we're blessed with this curse because it's something that we have to overcome, but we're blessed because we get to overcome it, whereas they never had the chance. They were just thrust into this way of being where they just do what they were meant to do, sort of thing. And like, honestly, it's a little bit NPC to me. It's like they're non-player characters because they didn't get to go play the game which we're playing right now, which is this hunt. And like, so back to what you were saying about the play in the very beginning. So I still think it can be a play and there still be this element of free will and this creative explosion that can take place within the framework of that play, right? So a play can have its certain acts and its characters and the general like stage that gets set, but every performance can have a variation to it in the way that each character chooses to display themselves and carry themselves out.
It's a procedurally
right?
generated
And
play.
so like there's a character, right, that you're meant to play, a persona, which is what persona means. It's a character.
Yeah.
You're meant to play this character in this play, but you have some liberty on how you play it. You know, that's why some movies are amazing and some movies are shit, because people didn't play their character properly. And like, you want to talk about really talking about exactly what we're doing. Jim fucking Carrey.
Yeah.
He's like, yo, I was playing this character of Jim Carrey, and then I realized I didn't have to play him. And I could play these other characters, or I could play the character that watches the character of Jim Carrey. And I could step outside myself and allow that character to still play itself out in some fashion, but to allow like his painting, like what he's tapping into there is what I'm talking about. He's
oozing with flow.
Yeah, he's like, but he's got it because he was playing this character up for his ego, because his ego had all these things, and like I still do that because I've come to the realization that stepping completely outside yourself and, you know, letting the Dylan James ego die off in a metaphorical sense, that puts you in this middle path. And the issue with the middle path is the same thing that's the benefit with it. You're impervious to experience, you know? So like everything in the world is a dichotomy, you know, and it's like they're equal parts. And so like you can only have as much happiness as you have suffering in your life. And like if you really, really want to fucking live,
then you really have to suffer.
You really have to fucking
You gotta
suffer.
enjoy it. You gotta be a little bit of a masochist.
You have to fucking love that, because that's the only thing that's going to be, you know, enough to allow you that capability to understand. Like it makes the room in you for the amazing experience to take place, that negative experience that took place, you know, because like, honestly, I spent a couple of months, maybe even a couple of years living in this middle path. And it was really interesting to me because like shit would happen. Like Rudy broke my fucking TV and I wasn't like at all mad about it. I didn't make him pay for it. I didn't even like get frustrated. It was just like, and it was after a long ass frustrating day too. But I was just so in this like Zen path of, you know, just like, you know what?
This can be overcome.
Doesn't matter.
No, I've learned recently more so.
In doing that, I lost some aspects of, you know, of my ability to get excited about certain things and to really, you know, feel the upside. And, you know, like when things would be going really well, it felt about the same as when they were going really bad. And like, that's good, but it's also terrible, you know? And so once I got to that point, I realized that like, you know, yeah, while I could step back and not worry about, you know, what the ego of Dylan James thinks, I like that.
Yeah.
I like changing the ego of Dylan James and adjusting it and
you get to view more perspectives,
better, you know, and like, you know, building the room out, right? To like fully understand like what is Dylan James? Like who is this character and this like role that I'm playing, and like what behaviors do I do constantly and like put out to the world, and like how does that make this ego feel? Because like there's the person behind that just doesn't give a shit because we're just here for the show, you know? And like that's fun, but like I like the aspect that gets to engage with that, you know? And like that's why I think that free will, like I
just
want
living one more layer into the back
real
end.
Yeah, like I just there's like that, like I acknowledge.
Hello, door.
I didn't know there was
Yeah, what's up?
I was just going to ask, can you a video clip?
Okay, bring it in.
Bring it in for sure.
Now we're doing Torque Talks in a different fashion, and they've been so much more fun and just a little bit sloppier. So I was trying too hard. Was the problem?
So subtle differences in trimming.
Okay, we got a Okay, so we've got a giant dartboard, and Kerwood is hook kicking a big. Ooh, was that a 20? Oh, triple 20! Let's
No,
go!
it was literally one kick. Just replayed. Yeah, it was just slow mo.
No. But like on the dartboard, you hit the triple 20. Like just as far as if you were playing for points, that was
Killing the game. You don't even know the real
like-
darts, my guy.
He was just happy that he
That was
nailed
sick.
the kicks.
I like that a lot.
Kerwood just came in, and you probably heard part of it, but he was asking us our opinion on a video clip and the difference.
Sniping out some hook kicks.
Yeah. That was solid. Kerwood kills the, like, throw something in the air.
His kicks
and
are sharp
then
as fuck.
hook kick.
Like always, all the styles. With tattoos recently, I've learned that is an immediate and simple like button to press to get me into a flow state.
Yeah.
Every tattoo, like once it starts, it's like I'm about to try my absolute best, and I love the fuck out of it.
So the more that you walk the path to the flow state, no matter how you get there, you're walking paths in like it's like a path in the woods that gets worn in, and over time, like nothing grows on it, and it just stays this path. And you just have this access to get back to that place in the woods that you used to have difficulty finding. Yeah. And so like, that's why I think that tricking is so important, because like, it's so more that we can like thrust people into the flow state, have them train it. And then as they move into other areas of life, like I find the flow state when I'm in conversation about these topics.
For sure.
When I'm researching these topics, when I'm going to work, I find it when I'm driving. Like I drove 22 hours straight with only like an hour and a half nap. And that's just because my eyes wouldn't stay on the road. And I had a car full of people that I didn't want to kill. I was on the way back from Neo.
Yeah.
But like, it's because I enter this place where like I have drugs. I don't have to buy them. I am drugs.
Yeah.
Like you have this capability within you to access yourself and like come alive, and like you can do it in so many different areas that you don't even realize. Like,
They're just taking advantage of being obligated to do something. It's like, no matter if I'm positive or negative about this, I'm driving this car. Nothing else will happen. Ignore that variable.
right?
How can this be good? Where can my brain take me?
Yeah, and that's definitely something that's true. Is like, I'm definitely the only fucking person that thinks this, as far as the group that I roll with, as far as the gathering road trips. But like, I'm always like low key a little bit sad when the road trip is over and we're actually there, or we actually like made it back to Colorado. You know, like,
Yeah, we could just keep driving like one more state.
yeah, like it's just like,
just keep going.
it's like
next
it
exit,
would
next
it would
exit.
be I would be more okay with it if it just didn't mean that it was like over, because like when we get to the event, I'm super hyped because we're at the event and like things are happening. But
you just left an event.
But then it's like that weekend is gonna be over like that, you know? Like as soon as we get to Triassic, it will have started.
Yeah.
And then as it started, it's like halfway finished, and then it's like, oh my god, now it's over, and like now we have to leave, and then like then you're back home, and it's like now I have to wait until the next one. And like as someone who's like, this is gonna be my third one, you know, like it just you get to the point where like you just feel like your measuring stick is like the time between events. And so like if there was just more road trip, it would mean that there was like more time between the like dead time between events, you know?
I've
Like-
learned to
like
love leaving. That's helped me a lot with that. Because now I deliberately do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I see it now in like I'm gonna leave, and I owe it to myself and to those that I'm close to have something to bring back. Be it just like a life story. Like I was talking to some friends on Long Island, And there's one girl that I hadn't seen in like a year, and there were no new stories on her side. The person I knew a year ago was the same person. I was like, oh, I've gone through a shit ton of stories. And like, we even tried like provoking that thought and like digging up like what has happened. And like, oh man, like I love leaving because I'm so determined that the next time I come back, I'll be able to say what has happened.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make damn sure that there's always a story. Because if my friends go somewhere, when they come back, they tell me about the funny shit. They tell me about the good times. That's what I want my friends to bring me when I see them again. And I try to offer that same thing. It's always good. I love leaving. I'm eager to start the next story so I can finish the next story so I can start the next story. Get all of them. Get all of them in there.
That's a beautiful way to look at it, because it really like it adds this element of pressure, which is needed, you know, and like that element of pressure on yourself that like, yo, this person thinks they know me right now. Like, I need to make sure that when I come back, they're like, whoa, I thought you were just going to be the same dude, you know? And it's like, luckily you and I have kept in touch enough that
one of
like
the few,
we actually like have sort of experienced each other's shift and change, how that's happened. So it's been less jarring, you know, but like, holy fuck, have I changed since the last time that we met? And like, have I added some fucking information and like experiences and understanding to my world that like I did not have back, you know, when we were living together and we were, you know, having these similar talks. And it's, you know, but in some way I'm still that same person.
Well, we end up having many of the same talks, but we're always a little bit better at having that talk. So we're going to talk about a lot of these things again several times. And each time we dig a little bit deeper, peel back a couple more layers, because we collect tools to do so along the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's because you and I have some of the same questions about the world. And, you know, some things are just like fun to think about. And then other things are like, yo, we kind of should be figuring that out, you know, and like, why are we here?
Yep.
You know, like, shouldn't you figure that out?
I feel like you could live ignorantly and fine without.
I mean, yeah, but like,
but I think
that goes back to the NPC. Like, why are you not playing the game?
I like to know how things work. I want to know why they work, and then I feel like I could have a better chance at manipulating it if I understood more. Like a lot with coding, with web development lately, I could use a lot of plugins, and I eventually will. They're time savers. But right now, I want to know enough of the core, and like, why are we here is one of those core functions. And like that, I don't know, it's pleasant to think about because you know you can't find the answer.
Wait, so are you saying you do use plugins right now, or are you using more of the core?
I'm trying because I want to learn like the base first. I want to know how
so then
how they made the plugin before utilizing what it is. I don't want to take it for granted.
So then, but you don't think why are we here is
no, I think that is the trying to like looking at when I look at the code of a plugin, I'm doing more with the code itself, not with using someone else's code. So with wanting to know why we're here, I think that's looking at the code. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just like accept like the plugin is the answers to why we're here. Like I don't want those. I just want to actually think about it. I don't want to just like use your plugin. I want to see if I can come up with my own answer first.
Oh, got you. Okay, I see the frame that you're trying to build with that. Okay.
Staring at code a lot makes it easier to imagine.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand like specifically where you're, because it sounded to me originally like you almost contradicted yourself because you were saying like, I like to look at the core and that's not the core. And then it sounded like you were going down the direction of saying like, but I like, that's just something that's nice to think about.
No, I think that's one of the core questions.
Is something that like should be thought about.
But you can be a successful developer by ignoring it and just jumping right to the plugins. You can be a successful developer just the same.
Right. But I think that, like, going back to what you were saying, like, you have to sort of create your own for your own, like, shit that you're doing.
Or at least understand how
because,
they're created.
like, if you did just use that guy's plugin, it's going to fall short.
Yep.
There's going to be aspects of that that plugin that he has that
could become outdated.
Just do not do what you need it to. But if you knew at the core and you looked for your own sake, right? Because, like, I only have the answers for myself.
Yeah.
I can share my answers that I've found to the best of my ability with others, and maybe it could spark questions that they ask themselves that bring them to their own answers.
Yeah.
But, like, for me, I'm just trying to lay out, like, as much framework as I can and not actually give answers. Like, that's what I was trying to talk about with, like, the flow state and the hemispheres and, like, that space that you can enter into. And, like, because when you do get into that space, that is where you can get in touch with that thing, that voice that will direct you and tell you on a level that is not communicable in language. What you're doing is what you need to be doing, and it helps give you that true meaning of life and the purpose of, like, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? You know, and, like,
this now because.
Yes.
That's
and
when that's the only answer you need.
But you have to, like you said, you have to build that plugin yourself. So like, that's perfect that you were on that track, because, like, if I just told you what mine is,
you know,
and you started doing that, you wouldn't have gone through the same things that make it what it is for me. You know, because I set out on a path that I didn't know about. You know, like,
you can't share your totality.
You know, like, I don't know where the path leads. I just know how to follow it.
Yeah.
That was something that I wrote down in my notebook the other day, and, like, it's dead on. You know,
it's the game.
Yeah, and, like, but the more that people can get engaged with that sense of this, the less anxiety and depression we're gonna have. You know, and, like, you're gonna have some anxiety and depression to get there, though.
I won the lottery on the nature side because I haven't had a headache. I don't get migraines. I believe now that I'm incapable of getting a hangover from alcohol. I've tested. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I won a lottery for that one, so I don't have to worry about anxiety, and that's my best privilege. That one's pretty great. I'm happy.
You'll claim that one.
Oh yeah, for damn sure. Like, just the amount that people talk about anxiety, it's like, fuck, I won. That shit don't have to deal with it. So, like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a wild thing when you have to work through that. But like you said, it's like,
I get glimpses of it.
It's like this game where you have to play at it and, like, work through the questions and the puzzle and the problem of whether, like, do we have free will, or is everything happening just the way it's going to happen? You know, and it's like, for me, I kind of, like, separate out the levels a little bit, you know? So, like, I talk to people about, like, levels of abstraction. So, like, at the highest level, like, my fundamental belief is, like, you and me are both just us experiencing us, you know? And, like, the world, all of this is just a way for consciousness to, like, introspect into itself and ask itself what it is. That's like the fundamental level of, like, where I sort of, you know, have put my faith in general. But then below that, there's that consciousness and its ability to communicate down with this observer. And then there's this ability for this observer to communicate down to this ego. And then for this ego to communicate with itself. And, like, at that level of the ego communicating with itself is, I think, where we're playing this game of, like, is there free will? Isn't it? But, like, if we go up high enough, like, at the level of consciousness, my belief is that everything that has ever happened has already happened, will be happening. I'm totally fucking this up. Everything is happening, has happened, and will always be happening all at the same time. There we go.
Yeah.
Totally fucked it up the first time.
You saved it. You recovered well.
That's the proper way. I just had to like reset my brain for a second. But like that belief is like, okay, well then my future's already taken care of. So then at some level, the free will of me to get to that future doesn't exist. But then why do I exist? Why is there an introspective mind space? Why is there a Dasein, as Heidegger would put it? And Dasein is the being that has being as a concern of it.
Okay. Self-awareness.
Yeah, a self-awareness. And so like, because there are all kinds of beings. This is a being in the world, but it isn't a Dasein. It doesn't have like this concern with the fact that it has concern. You know, like this ability to notice that it notices. Like that ability to step behind.
Putting a mirror in front of a mirror and letting that mirror know.
Yes, and letting that mirror go into infinity.
Since like time is, we believe it to be infinite and just continuous, and I guess we have weird ideas or debates on whether or not there's a starting point. If it is continuous, then there is always more future than past. That's kind of neat. That feels optimistic to me.
Here's something to think about. I don't know. It's just something that I've always enjoyed thinking about. So if we have black holes, and black holes are sucking in time and space in ways that we don't understand where it's going, eventually all of our universe will be sucked into black holes that have eventually collided with themselves, because they're slowly going to build up and become one supermassive giant black hole that sucks everything in. What if at the other end of the black hole is actually a white hole, which is something that they've speculated could exist? What if the white hole was the Big Bang coming through an empty universe and it's spitting everything out again, and we get to do the whole thing with a different dice roll?
So it's a breath of time. And then you get that different seed, not a true random, but random enough that bases everything else on.
Like there's all these fundamentals, and like we happen to get carbon based in this one. Maybe next time it's fucking like argon.
And are all these just tests to see which one worked the best? So then they can run this experiment on their whatever actual reality.
Right?
It's like, cool, the test is successful. Now we can live forever.
Yeah. Like, there was some fundamental problems there. And what if we're just a game of civilization?
Yeah, reroll the servers again. Yeah, they're going to be pissed. They tried hard this time.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. If that's the case, if this is a simulation, does it change how you live and love and enjoy your life at all?
Zero.
Exactly. That's why it's fun to think about. And I think that's why there are some people who refuse to think about it. Like, there was this girl that I was trying to go out with, and we were texting back and forth before. And like, as soon as she said this, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know if this is going to work out then. I was like, hey, here are some of the things I like to think about, and like just put something out to her. I forget what it was specifically, but it was like in this realm of like, you know, why are we here, and like the universe or black holes or whatever it was. And her response was like, oh, I don't think about that kind of stuff. It scares me. And I was like, oh, that sucks. That sucks, because this is not going to go anywhere, because I'm going to terrify the fuck out of you on our first date, you know, because like I don't go on a lot of dates because I don't know how to not open with this kind of shit. And so it's like, do I really want to bombard some girl with these kind of
thoughts?
That's
a good filter though.
It is,
because you want to find someone who can bounce back.
Exactly. You want someone who's going to be able to like respond.
I want someone I can play around with their head. Maybe the same mind.
Exactly. But like, to me, that's like like it doesn't change how you live your life. Like there's
No.
still the experiences that your ego has, you know, that like you live by, and like that shit's not gonna change
Everything
how
you think happened
about
did
it.
happen.
Yeah, exactly. And like your experiences are your experiences, but also you have the ability to like look back and like really like pay attention to what experiences you might have misfiled, you know? Cause like just because you say like, well, it was my experience that this happened. It's like, well, but how aggressively did you interrogate that experience for the truth in it? Like how long did you spend wandering around the room looking for the walls before you said, I know how big the room is, you know?
Dude,
because
some walls
like,
got cubbies in them.
yeah. Or there's a door around a corner that you didn't realize because you touched one wall and another wall and another wall, and you touched them corner to corner, but the door existed like somewhere, like there was an extra wall, and like there was, you know, it was a weird shaped room and the door existed on that wall that you didn't think about. And, you know, there's, unless you keep exploring, like the analogy that we're pulling from is like, to find truth is like to be blindfolded in a dark room and to have your hands, you know, walking, you know, you walk around with your hands out and look for the walls, and as you touch a wall you can start to map the space in your head, and over time you can sort of like walk around and sort of figure out what kind of room and what the walls are. And like the goal is to map the whole wall so that you have fully enclosed the empty space in the room that make it actually a room, because only once it's fully closed off do you have access to what you could, you know, probably call truth, you know? And like, shout out to Joseph Moline for helping me develop that analogy, because we were talking at Neo and he was talking about tricking and using that analogy of tricking being like a you know, you're just sort of like walking around a room blindfolded in the dark looking for a wall, and then like when you land something, that's like finding that wall, and you sort of have this point of where to sort of work off of, and then you can go from there. And, you know, that was just so fucking dead on, and like I really started extrapolating on it and like have been using it in so many of my conversations.
It's a fun thought experiment.
Just definitely want to give credit where credit is due, you know?
He's always an interesting cat.
Yo, I love conversations with Joseph Moline. Motherfucker is a shit cunt on the internet, and I'll say that to his face, but I love him to death.
He plays that game. He's just, that's the character he chose to play.
He knows he's always welcome to come in and sleep in my house. Like he's been here plenty of times. He's been through several different moves and like seen different houses, and like, God, tricking is just such an amazing community that we get, that just like gets to travel and explore.
It's fucking
and
wild,
like,
man.
We bounce around, and I really need to, you know, start making my family more of a priority, because in the last like month or two, I really realized I've seen more people from tricking like more often.
It's blood of the covenant.
Than I see like my family, you know? And it's just because like when it comes down to it, like when I have $200 in my bank account, I don't feel like it's okay to go for Christmas for like a week and a half and like hang out.
But if there's a gathering for a few days,
I will totally take off, you know, a Thursday and a Friday, and then be back by Monday morning to work and
spend
like
just as much.
Just take a weekend, but like spend that money and then reset myself to zero. And, you know, part of it is like, yeah, it's a little bit less time, but I love my family, but I just don't get the same like fire that like really gets sparked. Like when I came back from Neo, I have this like new direction and understanding based off of conversations that I've had, based off of just like seeing the culture of tricking.
You've learned
like,
something.
Yeah, I always learn something.
You've increased in value.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't miss Neo for the fucking world.
Dude, I don't plan on missing any more of them.
I try not to miss anything important for my family, you know, but like it's not at the same level of importance for me because I have this family that, you know, is outside of blood, and because it's like by choice, it's like,
well, that's what was wrong with the what everyone thinks is a quote, blood is thicker than water. It's a false quote. It's blood.
Oh, yeah.
Blood of the covenant is thicker than water of the womb. Like that's the bond that matters. And I think
many people,
it has potential to matter more if those are two of the same. So like I feel like that's the bond that can be the tightest, but like it's, you share a few genes with somebody. Sometimes it's only a few. Might not be worth all that much sometimes.
And I will say, like, I have a fantastic relationship with them, but like recently in like the last couple of years, I've gotten to a point with my brother to where like I actually like really want to go hang out with him again. Like,
that's when I said my brother upstate. I got a lot closer.
Hung out with him for the weekend back like 2 or 3 weeks ago at Neo, and it's like I'm already trying to. I was telling Scott because Scott said he was gonna hit up my brother because my brother and Scott are friends, and I was like, my brother's moving back to Virginia, so he'll only be like 5 hours away. He was like, "Let's go!" Gonna go hit him up, and I was like, "Oh, Scott, you need to convince my brother and his girl to fucking drive out here and like hang out for a week or so because like I know you're down to come back."
Yeah.
And, like. He's been out here once, but like he needs to come back out.
Oh yeah,
and like
he's got the covenant
it's
and
dope out here. Like I could definitely go back home and visit, and I want to more.
Yeah,
I need to get on top of my money situation, which I have been working on fan-fucking-tastically up until Neo. And then, it is what it is.
I just quit my job.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm fucking up a little bit right now, but I'm aware of my fuck ups and I'm trying to stay on top of them enough that like the second I get back on the 14th, it's like, let's go time and like full engagement back on my spreadsheet game. Cause I've been slacking on like when people call me and, I put in their tracking info so I can make sure that I don't, let them slip through the cracks and they actually get their cars fixed. But yeah, I mean, right now it's just been gathering season, bro. And like, this isn't even, I'm not even doing the tour, but I'm still doing the tour.
Yeah. Doing at least enough of it. That's a good one. This life game. I'm just pumped.
Right, dude?
Every day. I have no clue what's going to happen. More so than most of the time.
That's what we want, though, is like that excitement. What you need is adventure.
That's my answer to the where do you see yourself in 10 years? I, a few years ago, found what I think is my best answer, and it is
somewhere else.
Just somewhere I can't predict today. Like wherever I am in 10 years, it like if I could have predicted it, I'm going to be a little disappointed. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, fuck. That shouldn't have made sense.
That's a fantastic way to think about it. Yeah, do you have anything else to add? I think it's a good time to wrap it up. We're about 1:45 right now, and I think it's going to be one of the better ones. I'm super keen.
I document my life through that YouTube channel, so if anyone's interested in that,
fuck yeah, shout that out.
I haven't shared like a single video from it, but every time I get like a new like step in this story, I'm cataloging it, so eventually I just have it all and I can write maybe a book on it, but it's my life story is God's autobiography. I think everyone writes the same story. This is just Stephen French's version of it. But God's autobiography is just, it's a place that I dump all of my thoughts for right now. So I think it's amusing for me.
So go check that out on YouTube if you're interested in more Stephen French.
A lot of silly rants.
People need more Stephen French in their life. I know I do. Super keen that he's going to be here for the next week and a half at least. Because we are going out to Utah for Triassic or Triceratops or whatever the fuck this gathering is called. Kyle Hudson even said, I don't even know what our gathering's called because we keep changing it so many times.
It's called a good time.
It's called a great time. Like I said, I went the last 2 years. This is going to be my third time, and I'm so happy to see everyone there. And the salt flats are just gorgeous. And
Be my first.
Hopefully I can get this out before we leave for that, and people will hear and know that that's where we're at.
That's about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening. If you guys enjoyed this, hopefully we will be doing many, many more, as well as a couple of different other type of podcast style shows and maybe even some live streaming. We've got big plans. Hopefully they'll pan out. It's how it always works. Sometimes life hits you and slows you down, but we're going to keep pushing no matter what curveball we get thrown at us. Torque has been in this for 9 years now, and we plan to continue forward for a couple more.
Let's get Torque old enough to drive.
Yes, for sure.